Okay, so when I say human rights, these are certain rights, right? Rights or privileges, these are entitlements, all of you know, which we are bestowed upon. These are some immunities which are also um, given by the state or maybe emerged from the nature or by way of our own existence through which we can claim um, uh, some of the protection against the state at the same time. Okay, so when you talk about the human rights, these are basically certain immunities, right? Or you say that entitlements which are guaranteed to us by the state, or not necessarily at time state will be guaranteeing those entitlement to us, but by being by virtue of being a human being, we usually proclaim those immunities, we proclaim those entitlement as our privilege in order to protect ourselves from the aggression of the state. Okay, so when you understand this human rights, it is equated with, like, um, understanding of the state. So human rights, basically it is individualistic in nature, but human rights stem and originated from, arises from the society. So you cannot even think about the rights without society. No, so society has defined certain right to us in the basis of custom. Some rights derive from the custom. Some rights we have been enjoying, and entitlements we have enjoying historically because our forefathers have enjoying those privileges. Okay, many a time we equate rights with the privileges, but not necessarily these are privileges that will again create a kind of discrimination among the communities or between the communities, that it will speak in favor of one community, speaking against certain communities. So these are entitlement available for all in order to live a dignified life, in order to live a worthy life. So in order to live a uh, uh, like good life or living like a human being, you need to ensure certain right, and these rights are there by virtue of your being as a human being at the same time. And when it is guaranteed by the state, it becomes a legal right. So when you say fundamental rights, these are the legal rights just because these rights are guaranteed by the state. And this talk about, we talk about the human rights. It is already there. Earlier we talked about state of nature component. That is one approach to understand human rights. State of nature. So rights are there in the state of the nature, and we enjoy it. So nobody, it is under no one's control. So it is in the state of the nature. So we enjoy it just because, like, we are also a product of the nature. But this is not related to any social contract theory or related to social welfare theory. Okay, no, no, not social contract, social welfare theory or legal theory. Basically, when you talk about uh, the existence of right in the society, it is also related to, like, you say that certain rights are there, and this, over this right everyone has equal claim. Suppose I can also run to the extent, other can also run to the extent, but there is no mention of any kind of limitation. I can play loud music. I have right to play loud music without even considering whether it will create a harm to anyone or it will create a disturbances of anyone. So these are the understanding of right in the state of nature, from the social contract perspective. That is basically without any kind of restrictions, negative kind of right we usually talk about. Any restriction from any authority, any state will actually lead to a right in the state of the nature. So every human being can even gather food, even in order to gather food, in order to eat, in order to survive, they can even go for to the extent of cannibalizing. Okay, they can also go and even eat some other human being. That right. So ultimately, it will lead to end of human being only, right? So that social contract theory is actually a misnomer nowadays. It is not used, but it is said that everybody can enjoy, like, right by by the virtue that they are the product of the state of the nature. But when you say human rights, I have the rights by virtue of being a human being. That is not related to social contract theory, or that is state of the nature theory. Okay, by virtue of being a human rights, I have some entitlements, some immunities, which will protect me from aggression of the state, and which will protect me even from the aggression of another individual. So that is in human rights. Okay, so when you talk about this, legal rights means state is the one which will enforce the right, decide the rights, define the right. So state will decide the right, state will enforce the right, state will also bind the rights on us, and state can take away the right from us. So state is all in all. At the same time, that is a legal component. Even constitutional component, you might also say that state is all in all to define the right, determine the rights, enactment of the right, binding the right on us, make the right justiciable. Hmm. Justiciable. Most of the time you say this directive principle of the state policy, which is not justiciable. But when you say state, so it will define the right, make the right justiciable and binding upon us. Okay, so that is related to, you see, that is legal concept of human rights. So when you talk about this fundamental rights, it is basically a legal component of human rights. Fundamental rights are also human rights. Human rights is a very broad spectrum of right. Right, it has involved like civil rights, political rights, economic rights, cultural rights, social rights, first generation rights, second generation, and third generation of rights. So we have three generation of rights which are defined in human rights. So when you talk about the first generation of rights, these are basically civil and political rights. Civil and political rights help you to live a dignified human being, help you right to life, right to education. These are civil rights. Right to life. It's a civil right, right to education, civil right, right to form a family, civil right, right to get married, civil right, get married, civil right, right to um, uh, at the same time, right to even take part in election is a political right. A right to participate in a community is a political right. In a community, participation, any participation related right is a political right. Right to contest the election is a political right. And also right to vote is a political right. Right to form assembly and organization is a political right. Okay, then right to even move freely, settle anywhere is a political as well as civil right, like that way. So it will give you worthiness of being a human being. Okay, so that is very very important. That is the first generation right that culminated during the Renaissance, and after Renaissance, during even this American War of Independence. So an American Declaration of Independence, then French Declaration of Independence. You actually see, and you need to understand here the nature of the nation state, where nation state culminated out of this right phenomenon, because you see out of this right phenomenon, in the sense there is a demand for rights everywhere, and that has helped to even create a nation state, because earlier imperialism was there and rights were being taken away, right? Our rights were being taken away during this imperialist regime, right? Colonialist regime, rights were being taken away. So we did not have a nation state as such. We do not have that identity of the nation state, and rights were there, but still we did not even know whether to enjoy it, how to enjoy it. Okay, because there is no written document, no constitution to even tell us what to enjoy, what not to enjoy, right? And what is right even, and what is liberty, what is justice. These are the component came later on during the period of Renaissance. If you see, in 15th, 14th century, during the period of Renaissance, so that kind of that importance of rights actually, that got the primacy. Huh. And earlier Latin was the one language in which all the literatures were written, and later on we get to see this importance of, even you see, um, uh, this language, even French language, English language, Germany language, literatures are written. Then mathematics and history, geographies are also given primacy. Earlier only that religious dogma and religious scripts were given primacy during this Pope state divide time, during this papal state. Only religious doctrines got this primacy. So the Pope is the one who will decide the right. Pope is the one even who is sent by the God. And that was a kind of doctrine we get to see in political absolutism. That was also a period when a kind of understanding developed among the people, or even that message was spread by the king that he is the disciple of this God, and he is the one sent by the God to even rule the people. So violation of his doctrine, violation of his dictum, and also his rule will invite any kind of sin and punishment. Okay, so that was a kind of political absolutism which was there before the Renaissance. Huh. And after a few period, a decade after Renaissance also it continued. But and that in that political absolutism, rights were not enjoyed by the people, because king was all in all, and there is a divine doctrine theory that defined the power of this king. Okay, so state was all in all. State can aggress the right. They can take it away. They can take away the right. Right mean minimal right, which is their right to life, was also taken away if they revolt, if they like rebel or say no to any of the king's order. So that was the scenario. So right, importance of right was not given any kind of primacy, was not given importance during that period of time. Then thereafter, what we actually see is the rise of this Renaissance, as well as that emergence of democracy and parliamentary democracy in England, where you see there is a tag of war and fight and struggle between Britishers and uh, king and parliamentarians, and king had to flee away, and that has established the parliamentary democracy. Along with parliamentary democracy, uh, at this right, liberty, and justice, these are some of the philosophy also, got implemented in England. And in France also at the same time, they followed the English way. So France Republican government also came into being at the same time, and ensured France government ensured some form of right. So I'll be discussing about history of rights, but not in today's class. And I'm going to give you brief understanding about some of the rights, and give primacy to religious right and importance to religious right. Okay, so this is important. So then what we actually see is that okay, rights, what we see that rights have actually culminated. There is a process that rights culminated. So political absolutism was abolished and democracy came in. Again, we get to see this colonialism with this advent of trade route and all. So, and expansion of the colonies was one of the sole motto of this imperialist power. Denmark, Britain, Belgium, they expanded their territories, and they wanted to catch hold of more and more territories, and saying that son of those countries never used to set, and also expand their imperial power, and expand their trade at the same time. And that has also created an imperialism and a colonialism. Again, it has created a right issue, but still right was not that prominent. Right issue was not that prominent. Taken all the right from the people. Huh. So, an earlier feudal state, feudal lords were taken the right of the people. At the same time, people did not have right. Athenian state, at the same time, only citizen class enjoyed the right. Slave class did not enjoy the right. So, slave are the one, they can hold the property. At the same time, they cannot even take part in political discussion. They cannot take part in any kind of like uh, take part in matters related to state. Okay, so political right was also not ensured in the city state.
Does it apply in
So,
case of the peasants?
no,
Does it apply in case of the peasants?
no, Pigeons was not even one class, considered as one class in Athens. In Athens, there were only three classes: slave, citizen, and metics. Metics are the foreigners; they cannot take part in that day-to-day politics, and even cannot become a citizen. Citizen, which actually form a very minuscule section. At the age of 20, they can take part in politics. And we have also another section that is slave. Slave are guaranteed the right to hold property, but Apart from that, they are also most of the time they are not entitled to civic form of right. They are entitled to even not leave and all. So they are exploited most. So that the slave are exploited most. There's three sections of the population you get to see in Athens. So rights, civil rights, political rights can only be enjoyed by the citizen, only one section of population. And that way in the feudal state only, feudal lords, nobles, then dukes, they can enjoy the rights. They can enjoy the rights so that general people, they cannot even think about, even common people cannot think about the rights. Peasant communities which are used, which are exploited most during the feudal, feudal state, there are only we get to see a decentralized hierarchy, where only feudal vassals and feudal lords, nobles, vassals, tenants, they can enjoy the right because they have the right over their land. And there are landless pigeons who actually work for those tenants. At the same time they engage in different war, because different war situation happen, and feudal lords engage and use these landless pigeons, and at times those pigeons sacrifice their life also, and that too for their lords and feudal lords. So that was the situation. The pigeon community, landless pigeon community, did not have any kind of rights. But at the same time, when you say nobles and all, they are also a bit landed pigeons are there. They're landed pigeons. Okay, they do have the right because they carved and they exploited the rights of the that community. So you get to see that was the scenario earlier. And actually, when you talk about the human rights, the whole issue um, came in, and importance of it, the debate of it came in after the Second World War. You know, so before Second World War, although we get to see some of the practices which, in terms of League of Nations, that are organizational instrument that came in. We talk about ILO. We see ILO is an institution that came in, International Labour Organization, talk about the rights of the labor class and this working class community. So, in tangible form, we get to see there is an institution like ILO. League of Nations is also one institution. Think about protecting the right. But you see, in mass base, um, that propagation of the right, understanding of the right was created after Second World War. Okay, after Second World War, we get to see a understanding of the right basically. Although that ILO was instituted, before that we have Nuremberg trial just after the First World War. That was one incident. We talk about this French Revolution, American Revolutions, then England Revolution in England. That is also a part of understanding the evolution of this human rights component. But at the same time, we get to see the popularization of the right phenomenon, the understanding of the right after the Second World War, establishment of UNO, and especially after the Universal Declaration of this Human Rights, which was adopted by General Assembly in 1948. So that declaration was adopted, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, along with two covenants was adopted, International Covenants on Civil and Political Rights, and another was International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. Two covenants was adopted, and those two covenants define the first generation and second generation right. So third generation right got a importance later on. So when you say first generation right, this basically constitute of political rights and civil rights. Second generation of right constitute of, you see, social right, educational right, and cultural right. These are second generation of right. Basically culminated in Russian Revolution in 1917, when after the Tsarist regime, end of Tsarist regime, establishment of socialist state and you see this communist state, right which to be bestowed on the proletariat class and working class was a factor which was highlighted. And along with the working class right, right to work, right to get minimal wages, right to get that equal pay for equal work, and also right to get a good condition in this work, healthy condition in the workplace, and then also insurance related right, Okay, so these are different claims that came up after Russian Revolution. So these are second generation of right, and the right to education. Many times it is also one kind of, it is a civic right as well as, you see, this is also social right. Okay, so this right, cultural right, right to preserve the culture, craft, and this language, that is another right that came in. That came in after decolonization processes started. Decolonization process started in 1960s basically. So we got decolonized. It means we got independence in 1947, right? After 19, before 1947 also, in few countries got independence and decolonization process started. But basically across the world we see decolonization. There is a specific time frame when we actually understand that decolonization process has started, and that frame is a 1960. By 1960 we get to see that decolonization process has already started in African countries, Nigeria, Somalia. Many countries got decolonized because they do have along with us, India, have a history of common subjugations. History of common subjugation. We are all subjugated by Britishers and European power. So we revolted against, and we got, ultimately we got independent, and that's how it started. Okay, and after decolonization process started, there another set of right also got importance: right to self determination right, right to determine their political status, political organizations, and also political that organization status, authority, government, as well as right to preserving the culture, preserving this craft community. It's a cultural right. It is said right, cultural right, but at the same time, it is also related to self-determination. Okay, so it has got a boost and a promotion after 1960. Okay, so socio-economic rights came in. Basically, it came in, economic rights came in 1970s, but it got a boost after 1960s. And we also have another paraphernalia of rights, and that is what you see, that sorry, that third generation of right to self-determination, and that right to peace, right to development. Okay, so these are another set of right to development. Now we are speaking about right to development. Whenever we talk about child rights, we talk about the women rights. So we give more emphasis on development, right to empowerment. So these are third generation of right. Okay, we talk about right to participation. Even political rights are related to participation in the polity, but the participation word is not highlighted. So now in third generation of right, we highlight this word participation, right to participate, right to develop, right to self-determination, right to even peace. These are some of the rights which are highlighted after 1980s, and it has also got spread across the world, or it has got a that popularized across the world, that by 1980s, 1990s. And we have different kind of conventions also come out. Convention against this discrimination, convention of discrimination against this women, then convention on that child rights convention, and against refugee, that is also convention on um, convention on the refugees. So protection of the refugees right, protection of the migrant workers right, these are also some of the uh, new components that came in after 1960s, once this colonization process has started. So that refugee problem also, that aggravated. So that UN as an organization which is trying to saving these human kind from this course of war is also looking after the development right, also settlement right of the refugees and all, migrant workers, etc. So this is important. So we will be again dealing with the right. Right is very dynamic, so it is not static. Dynamic in the sense that it keeps on changing from community to community. You see that in Arab, that all Muslim people have a right to have 3 4 wife. They can marry 3 4 wife. But this right is actually come from their custom, right? That is a personal right. So it is based on their scriptures, based on their social custom. That's custom-based rights. You can also say that rights stem from the history at the same time. But Europe, a Muslim people cannot have four wives at Europe. Okay, so they do have see that right is dynamic. They have to see through the law of the land, and then they need to behave accordingly. So that is a right at that land. So right is contextual at the same time, contextual as well as dynamic. So it cannot even um, dynamic in the sense that it keeps on changing its face. Yeah, it keeps on changing its face at the same time. It is not that static, and at times it can be suspendable also. Huh. But at the same time, when it can be suspended, you can also have some remedies which are given by the state and given by the constitution to even get those rights back. Okay, so it is important because here also we see we have a right to constitutional remedies, but at time during emergency right can be suspended. Right, rights are dynamic at the same time. Fundamental rights cannot be taken away by anyone, but state can even put a bar on the right, like right to freedom of press, freedom of expression, and certain right put a bar during the time of emergency. During the time of emergency, but state cannot take care of the right to life, cannot take away the right to life at any cost. And if other rights are being debarred or other rights are not being provided due to the state of the nation, due to this condition of the nations, or due to proclamation of emergency, then that right can also be asked for. And there is also a provision of constitutional remedy when you can ask for the right. Okay, so that provision is also there, just to go in concomitant with the nature of human rights, that rights cannot be taken away by anyone. Okay, even the state also. So you have also a constitutional remedy to the right. Okay, so that is the very basic nature of human rights, and that is fitted with fundamental rights also. So, but the thing is that human rights, we say, it has also made enforceable by different convention, different, you see, different convention made it enforceable, different, you see, we have got uh, different enactment, different law came up at different period of time that made it enforceable. Instruments are there, human right instruments are there. I'll be discussing about those instruments, that is, but not in today's class. Even in terms of institution and the instrument, in terms of convention, we actually see human rights are being enforced on the member state. So this convention will guarantee the like you know um, guarantee the participation of the member state in that in that regime of right. So if India is a signatory of one convention, so definitely is ready to enforce all the rights which are already mentioned in that convention. And all the UN member, all the countries, they have got this UN member, they're definitely signatory of those convention. In that way, right is enforceable. So human right is enforceable even if certain countries do not have a written constitution. But the human right is enforceable by virtue of being the member country of USA. No, sorry, UN and Convention of International Convention of Civil and Political Rights, International Convention on social, economic, and cultural right. So, by virtue of being a member state of that right and signing the convention and signatory of the convention, they will make sure that human rights are enforceable and these are justiciable and binding upon the state. Okay, in that way. Some state like you see, Britain doesn't have a written constitution, but it is also it has signed this covenant and convention, and that way in that way all the rights, human rights which are mentioned in the convention are justiciable, can be enactable, implementable, and also binding upon the state. Okay, binding upon justiciable. So that is one thing. We have fundamental rights. Apart from human rights, we have some of the rights fundamental. Fundamental in the sense that it is integrated to the very basic structure of the constitution. That's why these rights are fundamental rights. Okay, so it is integrated to this whole constitution. Rights are fundamental rights. We actually see this um, uh, this um, these rights are equally dynamic. These rights also stem from the society. These rights are also binding upon us. Okay, these rights can be suspended during the emergency, right? And fundamental rights can also be positive and negative. Okay, these rights can be positive and a negative. So we have certain rights of which are positive in a sense that it will create a condition where all of us can have equal entitlements, equal protection before the law, and we ensure equality in terms of recruitment, getting job, getting educations, equal say, equal footing, and in terms of religion, in terms of propagation of the religions, in terms of even like preaching this religion, equality in terms of even preserving our that art, that culture, craft. So these rights is positive right, creating a condition. Okay, creating a condition of equal protection for everyone. So giving equal opportunity to everyone. That is a positive right which is already mentioned in the constitution. We also have a set of negative right which will prohibit state to create any discrimination against any citizen based on caste, class, creed, etc. And that is equivalent to negative right. That is a negative right because that will prohibit state to create discrimination. So in that way, rights are also divided: positive rights and you see negative rights in the constitution. Okay. So you need to understand this very right. So when you understand this constitution first, constitutional values are there. Secular and is one value of the constitution. Then we have the socialist secular. That is socialist secular is the very core value. Republic is a very core value. Apart from the justice, liberty, equality, these are some of the principles that we actually based on. Our state is based on. So state is based on. State want to enforce it through different measures, different steps taken at different period of time. State is state can state is um, state has promised in the sense and taken place to establish liberty, establish equality, established uh, that justice in the society, social justice, through different measures, so different states are taken. Okay, so that is one thing, and okay, any question? No question. Okay, then I'll continue it and then again. So when we say there are fundamental rights, first it is enshrined in the part 3 of the constitution, right? Enshrined in the part 3 of the constitution. And then we have also six right. Right, six right. Earlier we had seven fundamental rights, and now we have six type of fundamental rights. So right to property has been abrogated by 44 second amendments. Because earlier we had right to property, but now we do not have right to property, but we have right to equality, right to freedom, right to religion, then right against exploitation, and right to cultural and educational rights, and then we have to cultural right to constitutional remedies, like that. So we have basically six form of rights. Okay, so first is right to equality, very very important right. Right to equality. Right to equality is essentially related to the uh, the concept of egalitarian society. So we want to establish an egalitarian society, which is also a constitutional value in relation to it. So it ensure a condition of equality. Now, equality has been dissected, by political theorists and the scholar differently. You see, equality. It has been dissected differently. How we look at equality. So many people said that equality can be understood in terms of equality of treatment. Many people say equality can be understood in terms of equality of status. Few people say equality could be understood in terms of equality of opportunities. Okay, so it has been understood or defined differently uh, by different scholars, like Hobbes have defined, Lasky has defined equality in terms of equality of status, equality of treatment. Okay, So basically, impartial treatment is equated with equality. Impartial treatment by the state in terms of distribution of the resources. And we also have social equality in terms of the treatment, in terms of um, opportunities and distribution of opportunities. We have economic equality in terms of even equality in status, in terms of equality of the status. So the kind of measures that state can take in order to impose tax on those who are rich and affluent, and also increase the income of those, and even through legislation like minimum wage act and all. Okay, try to create a equality in the status. Okay, and equality in income. Equality in income very difficult to perceive the same time. Okay, because of the very nature of inequality of the state. So our state is not, even state of nature is also inherently unequal, and we are not bestowed with equal capabilities, not bestowed with equal characters, equal talent, right? We have different kind of talent, different capabilities, different force, different pressure, right? At the same time, so you see, it is very difficult even to decide equality of income, but certain measures can be taken in order to ensure equality of income, in order to even rectify the condition of inequality. So we in the state of nature, Hobbes said that we all are equal. We all are equal at the same the sense that we all have a brute power. Brute power is there, that animal kind of temperament is there. So in order to survive, we can actually use that brute power according to Hobbes. So everybody can use that brute power, animal power. So equally they can use it in that way. So and in front of using that brute power, other kind of equality, income, this like equality of treatment, these are supposed to be acknowledged by someone and come from someone. So it is even not considered, and in vain this kind of concept. So he actually perceived that equality concept in such a way that there is an equal state of nature, everybody is equal. And but at the same time, by nature, state of nature is unequal. We are also unequal. Even male, female are unequal. So we believe in creating certain conditions, taking some measures, and also some step in order to establish that egalitarian society. That is a vision. It is also very difficult to establish. Okay, so we can say that we have achieved to establish. We have taken some measure to also create equality in the society. Okay, these measures are being taken. So it is one principle is there. So right to equality is very, very important. That is your right. So you can demand it at least. If you feel that you are not equal, if you feel that you are deprived of certain, like and you need to need to communicate it to the people who are actually deprived, who are downtrodden. You need to identify it. Then only you understand this logic. Um, uh, you say that promptly, or even that fluently. Okay, so when you talk about that right to equality, you need to find out that right to shelter, that is also equivalent in terms of right to like equality, right to reservation, right to equal treatment of a few class. That is because of social disabilities which is there in Indian society. Because of social disabilities, people are not even entitled to enter into temple, entitled to enter into any kind of, you see, earlier, they are not entitled to enter into temple, they are not entitled to enter into even restaurant, entitled to enter into a school. So one particular communities, because there is a stratification of India on the basis of caste, stratification on the basis of even that Duja community, that twice born. So that stratification is there. In that way also we get to see different kind of treatment in India. Okay, so there is no equality of treatment which get to see, and that is there in other countries also, even in Athens, as you say, that during the BC time of BC. So we get to see that the division of population on the basis of their occupation. At the same time, rights are not bestowed upon. There is no right to equality. Equal treatment was not there. So that right was not even ensured. So right to equality is that everybody is equal before the law. So we have a law of the land. So everybody is equal, and constitutional right is equal to everyone. Whatever rights have been provided by in way of fundamental rights. are equal for everyone. These are binding upon us, and nobody is supposed to take away that right. And state is supposed to take some provision in order to create that condition. It's very very important. And you and in order to secure the right to equality, state has taken certain measures. Right, reservation policy is one. State has taken measures in order to convert this formal equality, right to equality, to a real equality. So that is one measures. So there are also other measures like state reorganization, like a committee that is also on the basis of reorganization of the state, because there is a demand from the state after partition. There is a demand from the state. They want to have a separate province in order to preserve their language, their tradition, their culture. So there is a demand that was actually raised. Okay, that demand was raised. Um, that just after the partition, just after the independence, uh, partition and the independence, in order to have their, like their preserving their language. That is another right, but that is equated to right to equality. They have equal right to preserve their language, their culture, their educational practices. Okay, so that right is also equated to right to equality. So that is also another step, taken by even their commission, state reorganization. Bill was also passed. State Reorganization Act came in 1956, and also various kind of reorganization bill ultimately that culminated, that regionalism and different state in India. So where different states were granted autonomy within that federation. Okay, India is a federation, and it's a local, each state and a local, component were granted autonomy. Okay, so that was also equated to another step which is taken by this government, affirmative action which is taken by the government um, in view of those you see, scholarship, lodging facilities are given by this government. If you section of the society who are downtrodden, who are depressed sections, who are disadvantaged sections, even economically disadvantaged, socio-economically disadvantaged section. So that's affirmative section, giving scholarship to them, giving like educational scholarship, that hostel facilities, free of lodging, boarding facilities are given to them. These are affirmative section, and intensive education facilities are being taken by government. Measures taken in order to establish equality, as well as preferential treatment government has been taken in order to create and establish equality at the same time when two communities in terms of job prospect, in terms of educational prospect, whenever they compete for any kind of job, whenever they compete for any kind of that educational opportunities. So the one who is disadvantaged, if they are securing the same mark, one who is disadvantaged socially, economically, will be taken into account. So that is also another provision, preferential treatment that our government has actually taken. So these are the provision. There are many more. There are many more legislations that came in. That the minimum wage act is there, land reform act is there, land reform movement. That is also a kind of step in order to avail the right to equality, land reform earlier. So land disputes were there. In many cases, there are land disputes. Lands are not equally distributed. So land reform movement has been created. That is a step in order to. I'll be discussing about the land reform later on. So that is another step government take to establish equality. Like that way, there are various like bondage labor, prohibition of bondage labor act, bondage labor. That is also another blot and blight to Indian society. Right. So government has taken some of this act, adopted some of the act in order to abolish the bonded labor system. Regulations are there to abolish bonded labor system in India. Uniform Civil Code, you might have heard of. Uniform Civil Code is there. So our law is codified, but whether Hindu law is codified or even Muslim law, that is also another one. So the making the law equal for everyone is also another step and the measures government has created in order to avail the equality, or in order to reign equality and right to equality. Uniform Civil Code that was not implemented yet, but you see that it is perceived as an importance. Uniform Civil Code is perceived as an important principle principle in order to living the secular identity of the nation. So our country is secular country, but in order to be secular, it is very very important to also to in order to be secular, it's very very important to consider religion separate from the state. But most of the time we cannot even consider religion separate from the state, because religion is very much associated with the state. Huh. And that become a part of nationalism, that become a part of our, like, our day-to-day life same time. But we have religious right are there, but you cannot equate with the secularism. Okay, we have religious right. Religious right cannot be equated with the secularism. Just because secularism is a one principle, one philosophy, that is also an ideology which see every religion on equal footing and not to mix religion with the politics. So that is one thing. But and in a country like India, when there are multitude of sects, caste, cult, so it's very very important for a country like India in order to establish a secularism. It is very very important to even separate religion for the politics, but that is not the case nowadays. But at the same time, constitution has provide right to religion, right to profess religion, propagate religion, right to even practice religion, from article 25 to 28. That right is there, but you are not supposed to deal with that right or connect that right with state, you know. So that is the right which is given to individual and the communities living in the nation, living in India, to profess, practice like religion of their choice, and also that propagate religion of their choice. So you can propagate religion as a religious community, you can propagate religious doctrines, but that should not even induce another member and forcefully like impose religion on a member without his or her consent. So that is also equivalent to this right to religion. So right to religion, right to own even movable property, immovable property is a part of right to religion. So you can even own movable, immovable property. So on the basis of religion. So you can form an association, organization to even propagate religion. You can own movable, immovable property, like that may be an association, immovable property, or that institutional structure, movable, like, property is there in the name of temple, in the name of gurudwaras. Usually you see how much, like, that money and penny is being collected, from people. So that is also considered as a right. So you can collect it in order to maintain this temple, gurudwaras and mosques. So like, right, these are being collected, no. So you can collect. So on the basis of religion, so that communities can even collect the money. And on the basis of, like, religion, there is a provision that there is state aided institution. If religious organization is aided by the state, this is also a provision which is mentioned in the constitution, that mm, the the organization, even if it is aided by the state, got the aid from the state in order to um, that provide education, impart education. They cannot impart religious education to anyone without his or her consent. They can impart religious education but cannot impose it. In a state-aided institution, you might say, because it is religious like, organizations and communities and a collective have right to establish educational institution also, but not necessarily imparting that education. They can impart education but impose that education without someone's consent. Then proselytization is also there. There is a ban on proselytization and conversion. So it was there during this revivalistic time. There is also a ban on proselytization, that conversion. But I'll be discussing about it. But and In directive principle of state policies, we have another set of rights, uniform civil codes. Just because there is also, like, there is a debate regarding this uniform civil code was mentioned in directive principle of state policy article 44 and make it a non-justiciable right. like a ban on the cow slaughter and made it a non-justiciable right, like that way. Okay, so like that way, there are certain rights we also get to see in the form of directive principle of the state policy, which will direct the state in order to have create a favorable conditions and in order to reign the justice, liberty, and equality in the society. These rights are there. And let me tell you that uh, this um, this directive principle of the state policy at the same time it actually have a non-justiciable claim. So whatever is not justiciable in the same has got a part in non-justiciable form. And in the regarding the uniform civil code, it's very important. And while implementing, how far it is possible to implement, it's very important. Huh? Okay. uh, then anything else today, or any questions or anything, whatever you have learned so far?
About the international governance.
International covenants. So I have also distributed that lecture. You have gone through it about this, like covenant, different form of rights are there, and also protocol are there. There's some protocol. Huh? You have gone through it. So do you repeat those aspect? Not today, but I'm going to repeat if you say that, yeah, it is required to repeat. Hmm? Hmm? So
No, we haven't gone through it yet.
haven't gone through it yet.
No.
So you need to go through. Okay. So I have distributed some of the lectures. Those are PPT lectures. You go through it first. So there you get to find International Instrument of Human Rights. Okay.
Human rights.
Yeah. Two convention I have discussed. One is International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, and other is Economic, Cultural, and Social Rights. I have given a brief about it. And there is also, yeah, there are fundamental rights. One is on fundamental rights, that history of human rights in India, which is very important. And also you need to have you need to identify and examine fundamental rights as well as the human rights. So some of the clauses, some of the articles you need to, like, focus on, and how these rights are being enacted. So that you need to, like, focus on that. I'll be discussing how it is being enacted, but whatever is being given to you as a material, you need to study. So then I will come and discuss all this. At least you will speak something about whatever is there in those templates in the PPTs. It will be easier for me to even guide you. Okay.